There you go.
Cool. Well, thank you, Felipe. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Yeah, just to kind of introduce myself, I'm Andres Espinosa, Global Sales Director at Ignitia, and as Felipe mentioned, joined by my colleagues Teresa, who leads on partnerships, and then Humphrey, who's based in Nairobi, and also reaching out on business development. I'd like to, if possible, make this time as interactive and just as interesting to you as possible. So feel free to stop and ask questions as needed, and we'll also have a discussion at the end of the presentation. The idea today is really to give you some further context on who it is that we are, who's Ignitia, what drives us, what what are kind of our drivers, what are our products, and how we might be able to partner with some of the participants and their organizations in order to bring value to farmers across Africa. So a brief, in a nutshell, introduction of who we are as a company is that we are a specialized tropical weather forecast service. Arising really out of the need of having accurate and reliable weather forecast in the tropical belt. As you know, this region is consistently known for the inaccuracy of their forecasts, and part of the problem is that the main suppliers, global suppliers of weather forecasting information are based in the Northern Hemisphere. So they're in the UK, the European agency, and also the Americans. And the models that they possess and then sell to the weather apps that we use and the systems that we use were not created for the tropics, where the climate and where the weather behaves in very different ways to what you would see in the temperate zones, where you have much larger systems and it's a lot easier to predict. So that's where Ignitia comes from. We're trying to solve the problem of how do we actually get some accurate weather forecasting in the tropics. And because of that, we define ourselves primarily as a science-based impact company. And Felipe, we're on this. We're going to second slide here, just if you're following here. The fact that we're a science-based company basically means that scientific research, actual research, it's at the core of everything we do. It's at the core of the content that we produce. We don't purchase our data from anyone. We produce our own data. And the fact that we are an impact company means that we really strive in a very consistent and methodical way to provide solutions that actually have an impact on real human beings. So really improving the lives of farmers, especially smallholder farmers in Africa, and really measuring whether or not we're having a positive impact on their life. One of the reasons why, of course, Africa is one of our primary markets is because, as I was saying before, the weather in this region is notoriously difficult to predict. But also it's a fundamental piece of information for a large part of the economy that's based on rain-fed agriculture and all the risks that come with that. So we really think that we're presenting a solution, an important innovation for a lot of people who depend on this information to make critical day-to-day decisions, for example, as choosing the timing of their agronomic interventions. We know, and we're moving on to the next slide, we know that whilst we are very proud about our very accurate weather forecasts, and we really think they're special for a couple of reasons. We, as I said, we ran some tests, and we can also disseminate the scientific papers and peer-reviewed publications that we have around the robustness of our weather model. But another aspect that I think is super interesting, and it's different from currently available alternatives, it's the resolution that we have in our forecasts. So as you may be aware, a traditional weather provider will give you forecasts with a geographical resolution of roughly 50 to 50 kilometers. So for that area, they will provide a forecast, and our model will have a resolution of 9 to 9 kilometers. So really, when we say hyperlocal and farm specific, we really mean that the forecast that we will deliver to the farmer, or that we deliver to farmers, is specifically relevant to where they are located. At the same time, whilst we think that our forecasts are pretty cool and perform very well, and you can see a comparison here with some of the other global providers, we also know that on the whole, weather forecasting tends to be perceived, at least, as a commodity, as something that you just get for free, and there's different degrees of accuracy, and it is important to get an accuracy, but there's also the fact that it's information that's readily available if you look hard enough. So the approach that we take is that we start with our forecasts. You can see this in the next slide. We start with a forecast, and with that, we create tools, actual, useful tools that farmers use on a day-to-day basis because there's a specific benefit to using them, and also that they're willing to pay for because it's part of their operations, because they see the value on that. We focus on, as I was kind of anticipating, on two specific users. I think the most relevant for this conversation is the smallholder farmer. So we really create the tools that we're mentioning here for the smallholder farmer in Africa, who's really concerned about, when am I going to plant my seeds? Should I or should I not fertilize today? When is a pest likely to come, et cetera, et cetera. And we also know that having an awareness of the weather conditions informs very much these types of decisions. We focused the tools we create, as I was saying, very specifically on improving general management, general performance of the farm, but with a particular emphasis on the timing of critical interventions. So when is the best time to sow and plant? When is the best time to apply fertilizer? When is the best time, to harvest or to protect against pests and so on? We think that the relationship between an awareness of an accurate weather forecast and then the decision to make an agronomic intervention makes an incredible difference on the output that farmers have at the end of the season. Because we are an impact startup that functions, first of all, based on scientific research, but also on a human-centered design methodology that actually is focused on creating tools that helps the farmer, the individual. We also have a pretty robust framework and methodologies to measure whether or not the tools that we create with our forecast actually make a difference to farmers. So I've just put a slide here that reflects some of the findings that we had from a recent report. And this is what stood out. We know that when we deliver accurate weather forecasts on time, in an easy and understandable format, most farmers, in this case 61% of farmers, will make changes that will impact positively what their outcome is, what their yield is, so the volume, but also the quality of the yield. We know also that there really is a very direct link between receiving information on time in an easily consumable format, and then an improvement in behavior, in positive behavior. Further on from these kind of digging into reports, we know that from previous experiences in West Africa, there's a few things that farmers themselves have pointed out as being super interesting in our services. First of all, we know that just delivering accurate information in an easily consumable way will be effective in positively changing behavior. We also know that when when there is a positive change in behavior, that generally can mean increased earnings, both because the price is better because of the quality, but also because of the volume. There's more volume to sell, but also it reduces the risk of loss due to unexpected weather conditions or extreme weather situations. So we really are about, hey, you know, we can help you to inform the day-to-day decisions that ultimately sum together really have an impact on what matters to farmers, which is, hey, was I able to pay off my credits? Was I able to make a profit on this campaign? And will I be able to again try it next year or on the next campaign? I guess I'll do a pause here before I launch into you know, what our specific products are. I wonder if there are any questions that you might want to put in the chat or you know, address before we move on, or should I just go forward?
There are already 2 questions in the chat, one of which is, does this mean your forecast is the max range of 7 days? Any forecast for a longer range of time? No, 7 days is not the maximum of our range. We can extend up to 14 days, and then we also do monthly and seasonal forecasts. Yeah, Humphrey already answered that, but just to be more specific, so the monthly and seasonal forecasts, they are sent once a month or once a season, and they contain the message structure is a little different from our usual messages, and it compares to what otherwise in this period would be normal. So it says something like wetter than normal, drier than normal, hotter than normal, as opposed to our daily rainfall forecast messages, which content-wise just tell you about the time and the quantity of rain within the next 48 hours.
Correct. Just to complement that, yeah, I should say that as a, you know, from our end as a science company, we are actually able to forecast quite a consistent number of parameters, different weather parameters that we're able to produce. We, as I've been saying, focus a lot on, you know, how easy it's to consume our information and to do something with our information. So we try to streamline it as much as possible and just make it very, very practical. But for some partners in particular, we can work on the specific content together and maybe together co-create content that's specifically relevant to that client's network of farmers or producers. So as a start, we do the basic rainfall, but there's just to mention that, you know, we do have other weather parameters that we can produce. Okay, so I'll keep going and kind of get to the concrete part of my presentation. I acknowledge that most of what I've been saying is it's largely philosophical and just letting you know a bit of a context. But we do have a couple of products that we sell and that work well in Africa, particularly around, you know, empowering farmers to improve the timing of their tasks and to reduce labor, reduce risk of losing inputs, and so on and so forth. The 2 products I'd like to discuss today is our Ignitia messaging offers, where we deliver the daily, well, we have 2 types of content that we can deliver via SMS or other channels, such as USSD or even WhatsApp. The daily weather forecast. So this is the weather parameters that we will experience today and on the following 6 days. But we also have climate smart advisory, for which we need a bit of information from the farmer, but we will combine our weather forecast with the location of the farmer and the crop that the farmer is working with. So then we'll be able to say much more, or we are able to say much more specific things, such as, well, this is a great time to fertilize your maize field, or so on and so forth. We have chosen an omni-channel approach that you can kind of see on the next slide. That basically means that the content that we produce, we're able to deliver via multiple channels. So the weather forecast on the one hand and the climate smart advisory, our most basic form, and what we find has had more traction in Africa because of its ease of use, penetration among small-scale farmers, and also cost, is the SMS. But we can also we can also work with USSD if that's pertinent. That tends to be a good solution when we need to get some information from the farmers, such as what crops they're growing. But we can also, take that information and throw it on a different channel, such as WhatsApp or Telegram, or your native app, etc., etc. So all of that to say, we are able to deliver this content on multiple channels. As we were just reiterating, we have a 7-day forecast, and then what we're working on delivering through those channels is, okay, so we'll do weather alerts. So both, is it a severe weather alert, or is the weather conducive of performing a specific task, for example, fertilizing or pest control? And then working also on the ability of the farmer to say, hey, I did actually follow your advice, and then we can track the performance of our advice and the performance of the farmers that follow the advice. Just to say, that's further down the line for us, but at the moment we are able to provide on multiple channels our weather forecasts to farmers and groups of farmers in different regions. We also have what we call Ignitia Smart. So it's an offering that would be probably most or more catered, not necessarily directly to small scale or to farmers directly, but to players in the agri-value chain, for example, input providers, where we collaborate with companies to bring added value to their farmers who are their customers. So a good example is what we'll have on slide 14, where we have a white label app that any company operating in the agri-value chain can adopt with their brand, and then provide as an extension service or as an added value to their customers. And there's different business models and different opportunities that can be created around an app like this. But one example that I'd like to throw here is, if you are a fertilizer producing company and you provide some of your customers with a branded application, an app, if that's the case, if the smartphone penetration allows, then you can say, well, this is a great time to apply your insert brand name fertilizer on your field, etc., etc. Moving forward, we also have a solution for agronomic advisors. That's on slide 15. That would be for agronomic agents that service a larger group of farmers. And on this dashboard, I'm not going to go extensively into its functionalities and features, but it has two concrete tools that our agronomists use, and that is the ability to, in a dashboard, to monitor and track regional weather patterns, and then with the information provided by that regional monitor, they can send farmers to messages or a subset of farmers directly. So say, for example, there's a storm coming, the agronomist or the technical manager is able to say to the group of farmers that may be affected by that storm, hey, please refrain from planting your seeds, or please cover your crops, etc., etc. This is really not intended to be like a sales pitch per se. So I'm just throwing out there some of the solutions that we have that have worked for some of our clients, but we're really happy to just engage in conversations on how we might be able to scale with the members of the network. We have to partner and scale. So we do have some frameworks, some models that we have tested and tried and that have worked well, where we, for example, partner with a specific group of farmers or aggregator or a company, and we say, hey, let's co-design some contents that's specifically relevant to your farmer network, and then perhaps bundle it with some of your products, and then try and see how that works. That's something that we found. It's very easily implemented and tested, and very quickly it gives both companies information about how interesting a project or a partnership on this might be. So yeah, on slide 17, you can see our most basic form of partnering is we come with a company. In this case, it's an input company that we put here, or a cooperative, but really it can be any player on the agri-value chain. We come together and we say, how may we bundle our services, put together our offerings to create something that is bigger than the sum of the parts by designing specific content for that specific subset of farmers. It has worked. We know it's worked well with input companies. We know it's worked well with cooperatives, and we really have at least experimented with ideas that seem like they might be able to get traction with anyone that's on this value chain. To talk a bit more specifically, we have worked, this is in West Africa, we worked with a multinational fertilizer company where, as I was saying before, the aim really for them is to say, how can we get closer to the farmer? How can we add more value to the farmer? And how can we add more value and usability to our products that are super critical to the farmers? So for this company, we have a range of add-on services that we've provided to some of their customers, such as, for example, the direct SMS weather forecast or weather intelligence that I've mentioned before. We also provided their field agents with the weather dashboard and the ability to communicate with the farmers. And as a second step, we're exploring the possibility of them adopting their own branded app as a way to establish a direct link and a direct way of communication with their farmer network. Another interesting part is the cooperatives. Cooperatives have approached this, have approached us more with the problem of finding ways to improve and maintain quality of productions. So for them, the weather information is very relevant, for example, for preventing pests. So again, for them, they have adopted our services or provided our services to their farmers in the form of SMS, but they have invested heavily on how do we produce pest relevant content that's actionable for our farmers in this particular area. So again, I guess the emphasis is not only on the accuracy of the weather content, but also on the relevance of the content that we create in partnership with other entities. A final example that I'd like to touch upon is when we come across credit providers, and that can be both on the financial end of the spectrum, but it can also be inputs that are given on credits. In this case, companies, of course, have a vested interest in the success of their farmers or their loanees. And as a way to mitigate the risk of loan delinquency, then they provide the service because it's been proven that it really increases the likelihood of loan repayment if they have better intelligence or better information to act upon, particularly related to weather risks. We are just to catch up. We're on slide 20, Felipe. I guess that's that's 19. Then that one. This presentation I'm happy to make available if upon request. So let us know if you want to have a conversation, and we're happy to put a lot more detail on the examples. I can see my colleague Teresa is also answering some questions there. So I'll actually stop there. That's for the most part what I wanted to touch upon as a general overview, and just happy to keep the conversation going and address any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation, Andres. So while you were giving your presentation, actually the questions were really popping up a lot in the chat. So it's perfect to see how many questions we had, and your colleagues have been answering them. But I'll kindly ask Teresa to just repeat some of her answers, so it's also recorded for those who cannot participate today.
Yes,
And as
of
go
course.
ahead. Yes.
Let me just see. So we were talking a little bit about the accuracy of our forecast services. So globally, we have an average accuracy for our rainfall forecast of 88%, but because some regions or subclimates are more complex than others, this might vary a little due to the complexities. Generally, we can say that West Africa is actually one of the hardest areas to forecast weather, and there we have an average accuracy for rainfall of 84%. So the chances are, if you're in another region, our accuracy might be even better. There is also some peer evaluation on this that I'm gonna drop my email in the chat, and if you want any further materials on our scientific backgrounds, we're happy to send you like a one-pager that summarizes like the difficulties of forecasting rain in the tropics and how we are solving for it. We use only remote sensing and satellite data. So we don't require any ground weather stations, which is actually makes it easier for us to scale and quickly adapt our models to the peculiarities of new regions. Which countries were already available. So we have very deep experience in West Africa because that's where we started. Our biggest markets there are Ghana and Nigeria, both in terms of partners as well as end user numbers. But we have worked in, I think, 9 or 10 West African countries. We expanded to Brazil in 2021 and just recently to East Africa, starting with Kenya. But our products are available technically across the whole African continent. It might just be that we have not set up operations in that country yet, but that's not an obstacle to be interested in our services regardless. So we can just work together all over Africa, basically. How do you forecast beyond traditional 10-day forecast with any level of accuracy? Yeah, that's a very interesting question, which I think will be answered if you look at some of the more scientific details that I can send you over our materials. But basically, keep in mind that that's exactly what we are solving. So we actually created a 4th global weather model that solves exactly for those tropical parameters instead of just reapplying or repackaging existing data from a conventional weather model that might have lower accuracy because it solves for temperate climates and high-low pressure weather patterns. And do you have any data for monthly seasonal forecast that links directly to benefits to farmers? If you mean on the impact evaluation, currently we don't. We are usually only evaluating on our ISCA or advisory services that they receive, and the monthly and seasonal outlook does not include any concrete advisory currently. Do we have an API? Yes, we do. Who pays for our services? I hope that became a little clearer when Andres was explaining our partnership models. So we do have the B2C stream where farmers subscribe directly from their mobile phones. So in this case, the farmers pays around 4 cents per message that they receive. But what we are discussing with you here is our partnership models, where we usually partner with input seed or any stakeholder in the food supply chain that usually subsidizes the service for a couple of seasons. And after a project ends, we usually try to have a sustainability strategy so that we continue onboarding the farmers directly to the service. And in some cases, we do work with donor funding or third parties, but those are always structured individually. So there's no blueprint that we use for all of our partnerships. They are all a little different. Is it available?
Just an add-on on that, Teresa.
Sure.
Sorry, just really quickly, an add-on on business models. It's really important for us to make sure that the partnerships that we develop with players on the value chain are interesting and valuable to both companies. So we devote quite a bit of effort in understanding what is it that our partner wants to accomplish. And that's relevant because in some cases, depending on what the partner wants to accomplish, they may want to absorb the cost of providing our service to their farmer network as an operational cost because of the savings that it provides or because of the benefits that they see. In some other cases, they may want to be exploring actually an additional revenue stream and say, okay, so how can we bundle and create higher value so we can command a higher price point? That's another option, but it really depends on what is trying to accomplish, and that's all going back to us. It's really important to co-design and understand what it is that we want to accomplish with a partnership, and then we are very flexible in terms of what we might be able to do to supply these services and in a paid-for manner.
Okay. Local languages we do have available. Right now we have Yoruba and Hausa for Nigeria, but we're also implementing local languages in Mali with our collaboration with the project with the World Food Program. So this is something that we can customize for every partner, as long as we have someone competent to help us guide on the local languages that are needed and how the message content should be phrased. But this is also a general note that our message content, especially on advisories, is very customizable to the farmer's specific crops, languages, and also any certain problem that we would be solving for. So for example, if a farming community has challenges with build-up of mold and aflatoxin, then we would focus on the harvest and post-harvest advisory, for example. Are we available in Latin America? Yes, we are currently mostly in Brazil, but with plans to also scale across the entire continent. And I think that is all of the chat. So if you want to unmute and speak up with additional questions, please let us know. I see a hand up from Sahid.
All right, thank you very much, Teresa. Andres, good presentation. My name is Sahid Adams. I work with Iweco Integrated Services in Nigeria, and I am actually one of your local partners in the Southwest. I'm very impressed to actually see that there's been some level of advancement in terms of product diversification. I see Ignitia Smart, which is more like speaking to the kind of services that we really want. So a couple of questions I would like to ask. The services that we engaged Ignitia on were around ISCA and also Joe, but for the ISCA, it's just getting messages around likelihood of rain. But I see the presentation by Andres that it appears that we could actually get more relating to humidity and also temperature and with the actual values. Is this integrated into the new ISCA, or it's something that has been there before, but we didn't have access to.
Right. So you're from Iveco, right?
Yes, yes.
So yeah, the additional parameters, they are what goes into more complex products that are available through our dashboard or our API. It's not currently implemented in the messages that go out to the end user through ISCA or CSA, because that would like like it would be too much for the complexity that we think farmers are able to comprehend in that context. But for you as a partner and a company, you can definitely access those parameters either through an API or by onboarding on our dashboard platform, which I'm not sure if you currently have access to. But you can reach out to me or probably Ayobami or Kwabena, and we can schedule a call to see what further products would serve your needs. Definitely.
All right, thank you very much, Teresa. I will most definitely do that. Thank you.
Yes, please, I encourage you to reach out. We've been doing a lot of work and a lot of homework over the last few months. We have new and exciting stuff. As you rightly pointed out, we're learning new stuff. So reach out, and we're happy to have a conversation with you and look at the specifics.
All right, thank you, Andres. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you so much for all the engaging questions so far. This is really great feedback, and it's great to see that you're all curious to learn about what we do.
If no one else has any questions, I do have one. I think, I don't know, I remember you mentioned something about training with the partners, and it's even on the slide that I have on now. So I was just wondering if perhaps I missed what this training is about and how training is given exactly.
Teresa, you want to speak up to that?
Okay, sure. Yeah, it's usually an in-person training for the partners. So we onboard them to our dashboard, and they get like a little product demo, and then we call it train the trainer, so that the partners that are directly involved with the farming community are actually able to understand exactly how to interpret the messages, because there is a keyword design behind our messages, meaning that a normal ISCA weather rainfall forecast message might say something like today dry, tomorrow rain likely at noon, and there is like a coding behind those words, meaning what does likely mean, what does rain mean, what does heavy rain mean, what time is defined as noon, as morning, as afternoon, and so on, so that our partner has all the exact insights, and then they can of course also bring some of their farmers to the training so that we explain the messages directly. Yeah, but it's a train the trainer with our partners so that they are able to assist their farming community with the interpretation of messages.
Yes, just additionally to that, you know, one of the important things that one of the kind of guiding stars that we take as a company is not only just let's push out, you know, information as interesting and accurate as it may be to our customers, to our farmers. We actually want to focus not so much on what is it that we send, but the outcome of you know, what happens after we send information. So as Teresa was saying, there's quite a bit of training and refining in terms of what is it that we want to communicate and what's the outcome that we want to achieve. And if it's, you know, it's not achieving its outcome, then there needs to be further training, both on our end in refining the messages and our farmers in interpreting this messages. So it really, there's quite a bit of effort, not only in producing and delivering information, but actually making it useful to specific farmers in their local context.
No, great, thank you both. Anyone else in the audience with additional questions?
So maybe just also recap, because I saw several people curious about the API. So we provide all of our data. We can provide all of our data through API. So it can be the basic rainfall data. It can be the more complex parameters. And this is great to power your solutions on precision agriculture, on yield modeling, or a marketplace. Like we understand that we don't need to reinvent the wheel with like new front-end solutions, and sometimes you can just benefit from the data. And this is also available across all the geographies that we send messages. So basically for the entire African continent, as well as in Brazil right now.
Excellent, thank you very much. All right, we still have a few more minutes. I don't know if anyone in the audience is interested in raising the hand and asking a question. If so, feel free to do. Okay, so if no one has any other questions, I would like to ask Ignitia if you have any final considerations or any final points you'd like to make.
Well, I put my email in the chat, so everyone that wants to follow up with us on conversations on scaling into different regions, or how you can access our API data, or for Sahid, how you can access our dashboards, or if you require any additional clarification on how the science and the model behind it works, please feel free to reach out. We can also schedule a one-on-one follow-ups if you have more detailed questions, and we're happy to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you. Again, just following up to Teresa. Thank you everyone for joining. It's you know, the summer, it's August, it's nice, and you're all logged on here. So thank you very much for that. A final word just to say, we have an office in Ghana and a team there who's able to travel to any point in West Africa. And we also have a team in East Africa, in Kenya. So please, yeah, please engage. Let's have those conversations. We do believe that we have something that's valuable for farmers and for players across the value chain. So let's chat.
Excellent. Thank you very much then to the team of Ignitia for the second presentation to AMEA. Thank you everyone who stayed with us until now, who joined today. The presentation will be available very soon, as well as the recording of this meeting. So until next time, bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.